let's do it.
So you said you had another engagement today?
This is my last thing today. I needed to record a testimonial for somebody,
Oh,
and it was just on my own time, but it was like I don't often like I'm not I try to be on Zoom less and less these days because I'm just tired of being on a screen all the time. So less and less I'm like doing my hair and thinking about how I look. So when I have to be camera ready, I'm like, oh, what else can I do while I need to be camera ready? So it just worked out that way. But I filmed it already.
I think you're so smart. Okay, I'm gonna pin
Okay.
both of our videos, and then we can.
Oh, is that how you get it to not be speaker view when you're recording?
Yeah, so on the
Oh,
top left-hand
yes.
side, those three little dots, you just pin
Yeah.
both of them. Yeah.
I was having this conversation with my partner that we had to film something for our website, and we filmed it and we were so proud of ourselves because we are like, let's just film this today. Let's do it. We're ready. And then we did it and it was like, that was great. And then we went to put it up and we're like, shit, it's speaker view. How do we make it so that it's
So
both of
hard
us?
because you can still hear the other person, but
I
you can't
know.
see both of you.
And when we filmed, it looked like this. Like it looked like this, but it wasn't recording that way. It was so
I've
annoying.
had I've had to learn this through trial and error as well,
That's how
and
you
that
learn
was
most
at
things. Yeah.
we had it was like a 3.5 hour program, lots of speakers, lots of attendees, and I was so nervous about it because we were used to running these in person, as
Yeah.
you know, as a former
Yes.
speaker. And the way that it worked with yoga, because it was literally full lockdown, people could not be together, is the two people teaching the yoga had to be apart. So
Oh.
one did it and one taught it. So it only recorded the women speaking it. It was like her face like this the whole time.
Oh my God.
I know, which is fine. You can still see the yoga. Nice to
Yeah.
see, and I could see Shauna doing it, but
Oh my
it
gosh.
was only recording Pam because she was talking. So
That's awesome.
eventually we figured it out, and we were like, because people were like, I can only see Pam, I
Right.
can't see Shauna. So
Right.
we eventually figured it out, and
So you got to
yeah,
pin people.
pinned them both, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Now we know. Okay, good. Now
I
I've
know,
benefited from your massive.
trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens when you pivot to a virtual space. So tell me about your partner. What's happening there? Like you
Oh,
were
so I have
working
often
with
forget
me
to
in
talk
this way.
about this. Yeah, yeah, please. So I just have a project with Sheila, who's actually my former coach, and now we're business partners in this. It's called Beyond Bubble Baths, a mastermind for modern moms, and it's
Oh,
actually like a monthly membership. I
okay.
should be promoting it way more than I am. I just have so many things on the go that it's one of the things that just falls down the list. But
Okay.
it's amazing. It's 2 calls a month, 2 live calls a month, Facebook group. It's really
I
like,
joined.
yeah, it's awesome. Please do.
Yeah,
It's $45 a month.
honestly, send me an
So
invoice.
cheap.
I'm in.
I will. I will
Yeah.
send you the information.
Okay.
It's really cheap right now because we're just kind of piloting it this year. And so like we're essentially you're getting like two highly trained coaches twice a month to talk to you about like your well-being and really support you.
Wow.
Right now we have about 10 women in it, and our vision is to have more women in it, and that it's not like that then you can kind of pick or choose which call you come to. Like that's our bigger vision, is that it's this kind of bigger container that we're doing less and the women are generating more for each other. But we're just kind of getting it off the ground. So I will definitely send it to you, and I got to keep talking about it more and more. It's so valuable. Like it's just community and accountability and just such a great place for women to be seen and heard by each other. Yeah.
Mhm. I really function well on, so you saw I just had a live with
Yeah.
Laura.
Yeah.
So she's a registered holistic nutritionist and the cutest.
Hmm.
As you already texted me.
So
She's a
fun.
She
Yeah.
is so fun and so sweet. And her and I were chatting about how I really thrive on other people's energy,
Yeah.
and that's a big motivator for me.
Yeah.
And not having that has been hard. Like Caitlin's working away, um, and these sorts of interactions, even these discussions, really help me because
Totally.
I don't know what it is. It's maybe just the way that I function.
I think
So
I'm really similar. And the thing is I'll keep putting them off. I'm like, oh, I have other stuff to do, so I'll put that conversation later or something. It's as though it's like not that important for me to get this like human interaction. And then it's been a couple days, client or, somebody that's actually like sources me and makes me feel really alive and connected.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm in a similar boat to you, and I really need to like carve out those opportunities. So Beyond Mastermind, Beyond Bubble Bath Mastermind is actually a really great place to do that, to just like be seen and be heard and hear other women talk too.
Sorry, I'm just putting a title in this. Don't
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
I'm
No, no, totally go for
procrastination. I always spell that word wrong.
it.
No.
Procrastination.
Reframing procrastination. There we go. Um, yeah, I know. And I think that I love that you're trying something new. I think that's amazing, right? Trying this membership. So, how are you
Totally.
doing membership? Do you have like a membership plugin on your website?
Uh, that's a good question. Sheila set up the actual, um, it's through PayPal. So when you sign up for a recurring payment. Um, and so just every month they get charged until they opt out. We ask for 30 days notice to end your membership. But again, our vision is to have people in it for like a year, to really commit to a year. So we offer a discount if you sign up for the full year, to
Okay.
have people really commit to themselves. Because, part of what goes on with women in self-care is they kind of get excited about it and they're like, I'm going to do this thing and take really good care of myself. And then, they fail for a week or two or three or a month, and they're like, oh, I just suck, I don't deserve this. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, it's just that your life ebb and flows. And so one of the cool things about committing to it is that there's a place for you to come back to when you've kind of like gotten off track, which is totally human, to get off track, especially when you're a mom, like something happens with your kid and you just kind of get taken out, and it's hard to get back to that place where you feel like you're really taking care of yourself. So that's
So, do you feel like there's a reason for that? Because that is so common. Like, why do we
reason for what.
fall off this like we're gonna do this thing?
Mhm.
Like, why do we do that?
Why do we hi Facebook, are we live now on Facebook?
Yeah, I think it is it
Hi.
working?
It
Okay.
says meeting is now streaming live on Facebook, so I
There we
assume
go.
so. Yeah,
Now it's
hello
working.
everyone.
Sorry. I don't know why it was like stalled on the other one, so I did it
Yeah,
again.
no worries. Am I tagged in it? It doesn't
I
matter.
will tag you.
Cool. Hello Jessica's Facebook,
How do I do this?
or
So it's on
Grace and Flo's Facebook.
but you're right. I don't know if it's tagging you or not.
That's okay. I can tag myself in it later once it's recorded.
Okay. I'll try putting it in there right now.
Okay. What did you ask me? Why does that happen? Why do
Yeah,
women
so
get off track with their well-being?
we have these great ideas,
Yeah.
and we sign up for some form of self-care, and then we stop doing it for whatever reason, and then we feel bad about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have lots of theories about this. So, first of all, I think that most of us set up our self care from trying to fix ourselves or fix something that we think is wrong with us,
Oh, interesting.
which only lasts so long, because then it's like kind of a disempowering thing where you're like, I haven't been exercising enough, and a good girl would exercise. And so I'm going to go exercise more.
Mhm.
And that's just not ultimately very motivating. It's very motivating for a very short period of time. And so I think people aren't really connected to the bigger vision of why they would, that pulls them through those slumps. Because the other thing is, it's totally human to miss one, or the other thing is, then we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection, or kind of
Yeah.
all or nothing thinking, right?
Mm,
That it's either like I have a 30-minute walk is ideal for me every single day. I love to get outside for 30 minutes.
good for you.
And what happens is, if I don't have 30 minutes, I don't go at all, because I'm like, well, I said 30 and I don't have 30, so I'm just not going to go. Right. So it's like, it's
Good
so dumb, and I know that I'm doing it, and yet I still do it. So there's just this perfectionism thing.
Mm.
Or I didn't go yesterday, so I guess what's one more day, right? But
I
we
know.
get,
I think that's what happens to me,
yeah,
anyways. I don't know if
yeah.
this happens to other ladies. And before we continue, I just want to check: are you Meghan Smith coaching on Facebook?
Yeah, or you can just take my personal page, is probably better. Just Meghan Smith. That's where I do most of my business stuff. Maybe you have some thoughts about this, but when I started out, I was like, there's so much wisdom about like, what do you start your own business page? Do you just do it on your own personal page? And so I ended up kind of doing both, and I end up doing most of my stuff on my personal page.
Personal.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's not popping up.
Okay,
Like,
then just tag Meghan Smith Coaching. That's fine.
isn't that weird? You
That is
you
weird.
didn't like hyphenate your name, your last name?
Nope. No, it's just Meghan Smith. Maybe there are too many of us.
Yeah, but we're friends.
Oops.
Oh, hello.
That was my
Anyway,
phone.
yeah,
So
sorry,
sorry.
honey, I can't find
That's
it, but
okay.
I'll take your coaching.
No worries.
So yes, I definitely that struggle is real. So for me, if because I like to do yoga every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to a point where I was like, oh, if I don't do yoga every day, then what's the point and why am I doing this? But I actually have found that I don't do that anymore. I
Cool.
do yoga one day and I cannot do yoga the next day, but then I'll pick it up the next, right? Like it's become a part of my life now, where my habits are not centered around my ego. Just for that.
I was gonna
Not
say, is it like that across the board, or is this just a place that you've? Yeah,
it's maybe because I'm teaching yoga and
yeah,
I
yeah,
like have a regular schedule for that too, but I
yeah,
do still keep my own practice up. But
yeah,
I have gotten okay with not doing it every day.
yeah.
But
Well, I,
everything else in my life isn't like that. It's just yoga.
I think that's the other thing is like, you know, I talked about this early in January on a couple of lives that I did. Like, I think that we have this idea that because we mentally know better, like I can sit here and say to you, like, I know I do that thing. I think because I mentally know better, I should be able to do better. But look how long it sounds like it took you a while to get to that place with your practice, right?
Here,
And yeah, years. And yet we expect that with other things, we should just have an idea and be able to implement it perfectly. It just took you a while. And now you have this experience where you were able to do that and you can use that to then draw on other things, right? Like, okay, well, where else could I take this way that I learned to do it that's less about my ego, and where could I bring that to my, I don't know, whatever else you want to do, like my romantic relationship or whatever other things are good for you that you don't always nourish.
everything else. Yeah,
Yeah. You name it.
so far I've only conquered this one aspect, but yeah, I definitely need to incorporate it into the rest of my life. So I'm really curious about how you work with leaders
Yes.
and how, because we've had some really good conversations, and I really love the conversation that came up at Boss Up when you sat on the panel in Vancouver, and you were basically talking about how you use a very different approach around, like, life is short,
Hmm.
we're stardust, like,
Yeah.
and so you sort of create this like grab life with
Mhm.
everything you've got approach to leaders, and I'm curious about how that works.
Well, it's really like I feel like it's my life's purpose to, be over dramatic about it. It's like I just really believe that we are here for a purpose. And it's less about I got to find what my purpose is and more about I have a purpose and I'm willing to discover it and follow the breadcrumbs that lead me there.
Mhm,
So to
mhm,
me, that is leadership. Like leadership is being willing to say, I see this thing for myself or for other people or for the world, and being willing to create it and live from that place, whether it makes sense or not, because it
mhm.
usually isn't going to
And
make
have the
sense from
purpose.
your
Yeah.
yeah, like so it's like I just see a world where people get to use their time here for what they want to use it for rather than trying to first have enough money or first have enough safety, because that's just the ego's way of keeping you from not doing
Mhm,
that thing. There's never going to be enough money and there's never going to be enough time and there's never going to be enough of you for your
mhm,
ego. So just really tapping into like my life is now. There is no better time. What is it that I really want? And then
mhm.
going about creating that. That to me is leadership.
It is.
Is
And you've
living your
really
life.
lived that. Like, you've gone through quite a transformation.
I do live it. I was a very unhappy yet successful lawyer, um, and that I I don't want to say one day I woke up and was like, "What am I doing?" Because it was not that quick,
It was
but
a
it was a
progress.
progression to
Okay.
like just really listening to how miserable I was, and it was like, oh, maybe I'm miserable because I eat too much gluten. And so I'll eat less gluten, or maybe I'm miserable because I don't work out enough, right? And then like you try these things and you're like, nope, still miserable. Maybe it's because I'm not honoring my inner voice and soul. Maybe that's the problem.
Kind of a big one.
It's kind of a big one, but it took me a while to get there because I personally was really conditioned, as my experience as a lot of people are,
Mhm.
to kind of like safety first, like make sure you got your ducks in a row. And then
Yeah.
once your ducks are in a row, then you can maybe get a little bit of something for yourself. But the problem is your ducks are never in a row because they're always wandering off and like they're just never in a row. To
No,
use
and
a metaphor.
you guys lived in a beautiful neighborhood in Vancouver. You
Hmm.
lived in like a gorgeous upscale
Hmm.
condo. And, do you think that those sorts of things were because you were like, okay, well, I have to have this lawyer's job. I have to
Yeah,
have this great condo. I have to live in
totally.
this neighborhood. Like, yeah.
Totally. Like a sign of success is that you get to have whatever you want. And I want fancy things. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to live in a good
No,
neighborhood. But if you
no.
think it's going to make you happy
Yeah.
over actually like honoring who you are, it's not. You can have both. You can like honor who you are and live in the neighborhood of your dreams. That's what I want for people. But
Mhm.
often people are putting one against the other. Like
Yeah.
I prefer to have these this trappings of a successful looking life and to feel a sense of safety, like nobody can take it away from me. I prefer that over actually expressing what's really here.
Mhm.
Um, and I really think people can have both. That's what it comes down to. Like, I'm not suggesting that you like throw all of that away and go and like,
No.
live a boho life if that doesn't feel good for you, but you can actually have both. People just don't often see the possibility of having both. And that's part of my job is to invite people to that possibility.
Well, the safety piece. So let's maybe tap a little bit more into that because that doesn't feel like an ego thing. That feels
Hmm.
like a necessity thing.
Hmm.
But you're saying it's not?
Well, I'm saying that I think people need their basic needs met for sure.
Mhm.
What I think people convince themselves, if I follow my heart, I will be poor. I don't think that's true. And I think that's like the part that it's like, I won't be okay. They will be okay, right? Like they will totally will be okay. But
You'll
it's
figure
you'll figure it out. And the problem is, I don't want to say the problem, but this is the trap I see people fall into, is that they're at A, and they're like, okay, well, if I listen to my heart, I'd want to be at B, and I don't know what's in between A and B, and until I know for sure, I'm not willing to go after B. That's
scary.
the ego part. That's the ego part that's like in this between A and B, you're going to fail, you're going to be homeless, you're going to like everyone's going to laugh at you and make fun of you. That's not true. So that's the part where I'm like, of course you want like I'm not saying don't want money or don't want I want those things. I want those things for my family. I want to feel a sense of security and like my physical body is taken care of, but it takes a lot less than we think, A. And B, all these pitfalls are not really usually true. We're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do think the ego tricks you into thinking you need more safety than you actually need,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I can totally see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So definitely not saying like don't go after material things, but again, like don't the trap is thinking that they're going to make you happy. It's a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a mirage to
Yeah.
think that like those are
And then
it.
you get there, and then what? Right? Then you want something else.
Totally. Totally. Uh
That's what we
yeah.
like.
Yeah. And like we're that's nothing wrong with that either. That's part of people's evolution. Like I had to realize that the hard way, right? I had to get exactly what I thought I wanted and then get it and be like, this sucks. I don't like this at all. This is
Yeah.
awful.
How did you go through that? Like, what happened there?
Mm, like with leaving law.
Yeah. Like, I know
Yes.
the story, but other people don't. So tell
Yeah.
me about it.
So essentially like I left law and I actually clerked at the Court of Appeal for a year, which is kind of a cushy little job where you don't work that hard. But like, so during that time, I lived in Vancouver. I was single. I was like running all the time. I was eating great. I was making my own meals. Like, I really just loved life. I had a lot of time. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, this is not like, this is lovely. And what I'm about to walk into with the firm that I was going to be working for is not going to be like this. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to have time. I'm going to be like working all the time. And so that was like the first little seed of like, I'm not sure that I want this life that I thought I wanted.
Mm.
And then I got to that firm and sure enough, I was just not very satisfied or fulfilled. And it just didn't feel like me. It just felt like it felt like I was acting. And it's, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's well, that's that imposter syndrome, which
totally.
we're, I mean, Okay, so there's part of some people that say like it's okay and you have to kind of get through that, whereas you were like, no, this is clearly not going to go away.
Yeah, like I have imposter syndrome about being a coach all the time. That
Okay.
part is like I don't know what I'm doing and what the heck, like, but it's like I
I
love
every day. I'm so glad you say that.
exactly, exactly. So that's the part where it's like syndrome is totally normal. I'm not talking about imposter syndrome so much with law. That was more like my soul is miserable and this is not what I meant to be doing on this earth. Like it,
I
and it
know.
would have I would have told you it was imposter syndrome. Like I would have just said like, oh, I just like I'm scared of making mistakes and I don't feel like I deserve this. But it just wasn't who I was. And I can see that now. I couldn't
Mhm.
see it at the time, right? Although on a spiritual, like deep intuitive level, I knew that. I just didn't really know it here yet.
Well, but
Um,
you had to go through that. And I also
exactly.
think that, you learned so much, right? Like these are all things that make you who you are. And
Totally.
those kinds of experiences, maybe you wouldn't have become a coach if you hadn't gone through that.
Absolutely. That's what I think about when I'm like, oh man, I really wasted that law degree. I'm like, no, I didn't. It just didn't have the purpose I thought it was going to have. I thought
Mhm.
I was meant to go to law school so that I could practice law. I was actually meant to go to law school so I could, you know, tire out the story about myself that I was this like high performing, intellect, that's what my purpose was. I had to really play that out to its bitter end and be like, oh, that's not at all who I am. But I don't think I could have realized that any other way.
And I
So,
honestly, I do feel like, especially if people don't know you, working with you as a coach, they probably see that as like, oh, she does know what she's doing. She can
mhm.
accomplish things. She's a smart woman.
Yeah,
You know, it probably still
it gives
a
me a
lot
lot of cred.
is, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
gives me a lot of cred. Totally. It's like, oh, this person has gone that way, especially with other lawyers, right? When they're like,
Yes.
yeah, they're
You
like, oh,
work with a
you
lot
actually
of
understand. Yeah, I do work with a fair number of lawyers. Yeah. Yeah. Especially when I first started out, that was a lot of the people that I worked with. So, and now I used to work with lawyers. I work now more with lawyers who really don't want to be lawyers because,
anymore.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or just are
Because
miserable.
like
Yeah.
what their passion is.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of trying to figure out what's next for them outside of law. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, so that was kind of where I found myself. And then I got pregnant, kind of half by accident. And then when you have, when you get pregnant or have kids or become a mother, you really do start to consider other things. On the one hand, like my need for safety and security got even stronger, right? I was like, well, now I have a mouth to feed. So like I can't mess around. But the other part of me that became stronger was like, what do I want to model for my kids? Do I
I
want to
know.
model,
I felt that too.
yeah, do I want to model like grinding through a miserable career just to be able to take them to Disneyland? Or do I want to model like actually loving your life? So it was these like really big tension. So what happened is I went on mat leave, and then I actually they paid me to be on mat leave. As I don't know if you have any Americans, but whenever I tell Americans that, they're like, say what now? You get a whole year off and they sometimes pay you? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they paid me about $30,000, but the deal was I had to pay it back if I didn't return. So then I
Or
was in this.
and then you don't have to pay back.
What's that?
If you returned, you didn't have to
If
pay
you
back.
return for 1 year, you don't have to pay it back. Yeah.
Right.
So then I was
Yeah.
in this real dilemma because I was like, I don't want to go back, but this money's nice, but I don't want to go back. But look at this money in my bank account. So I ended up not spending the money. And then when the time came, I actually did commit to going back. I had a return date and everything. And then like, 2 weeks out, I was like, I can't do this. It's just, it was that thing about like, it's only a year. And then I'm like, yeah, but what if this is like, it's a bit dramatic, but I was like, what if this is my last year? Like, what if this is all I get with my daughter? Do I really want to spend it being completely miserable?
Totally.
And
And then so she's in care and I'm working my ass off and yeah, I
not
get
having fun and grinding away for what? Um, and so without really knowing what I was going to do, I just called them and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't, I'm not into this. I'm not coming back, and I'll figure out a way. I'll get you the money
and being
back.
fully supportive.
Yeah. They didn't really care. They're like, okay, we'll just find some other schmuck to take your place. See you
Yeah,
later.
no, sorry. I meant Ian. Like what
Oh, Ian. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the law firm.
no.
Um, Ian's very supportive. Ian was like, I just want you to be happy. So we'll be
Amazing.
fine.
That is
Yeah.
a huge decision, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at that time, you weren't just leaving a job, you were giving up 30 grand.
And it
And
was leaving a whole identity behind. Like, that's really who I thought I was. I'd come to know myself as this, like,
yeah,
I was at the top of my class in law school. I got a job at one of the best law firms in the city. You know, I clerked at the Court of Appeal. Like, I was just really, I had worked at a firm in New York and they invited me to come back. Like, I really had, like, I could have been working on Park Avenue in New York, like I really was giving up this identity of this person that I thought I was. So it
yeah.
was a really, 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 really big deal. Um,
It's a huge deal. And like
yeah.
I know because I know you personally and we've known each other for years. I
Hmm.
know that if your family does this, right? You have
Hmm.
family that does it, and so you're
Yep.
probably like, this makes sense. This is what my family
Yeah,
does.
and my whole family just watched me go through law school and came to my graduation and came to my call to the bar, and we're like,
Bars.
well, that's Megan sorted. She's gonna be a lawyer now. And
Yeah.
like, people
This
would
is
say to me like, man, like, it's so cool to know a lawyer. And I was like, oh God, like, this is all this pressure,
yeah.
um, or I'm so proud of you. Like, and it really is, like, law is one of those things that people really look up to for some reason, right? Like, that you somehow, and I loved that. I loved the idea of being a lawyer and being able to say to people, I'm a lawyer, and having them be like, oh, she
We
must
want
be
you to
really
sit on
great.
this board.
Yeah,
We need your advice for this, right? Like,
totally,
I mean,
totally,
a lot of boards I sit on, they're always like, we need lawyers, right? Because that's
totally. Yeah,
important. You know so much.
yeah.
Um, so it
And
helps.
your ego just loves it because it's like, people think you're smart. You say one word and people are like, ooh, this person's smart and hardworking and must have my ego loved it. So it was a big deal to give it up, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So that
know.
was my exit from, like, the practice of law. And then I went to a non-practicing job, which was wonderful for a time. I loved the people. I liked the work. I got paid really well. I could walk there from my house. It was really nice. But even that, after a while, I was like, this still doesn't feel like it's honoring who I really am.
Thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I hired a coach um,
And that's
around,
Sheila?
nope.
No?
No, I
Okay.
hired a woman. I actually went into, like, a group coaching program, and it was actually around my relationship with food and body. So that's kind of why I said, like, oh, I think that what's missing for me is my relationship with food and my body. That feels kind of disempowered, and I think that might be why I'm feeling unfulfilled. And it was through that coaching that I was like, oh, this isn't really about my food, my body or food. This is like that I actually am just ignoring my inner voice that's telling me something.
Mm,
Um, so that's kind of when I was like, I think that I'm meant for something other than this. And if that's true, or if I bought into the idea that I could get paid and love what I do, which was very radical to me at the time, like, that's not for me, that's for other people to, like, get paid for what they love.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's not for me. But I let myself just play there, and I was like, maybe that is for me. And if it was, what would that thing be? And then I was like, um, you know, it's it's talking to people. Like, I love talking to people. When I'm on the phone with somebody that I love, and like, we've kind of been vulnerable with each other and really supported each other, like, that's when I feel the most alive. And then I was
Mhm.
like, well, I think that's coaching. I think that's what coaching is.
Yeah.
So I just kind of started to flirt with it. And anyway, I went on a second mat leave, and my second was a really good baby. He was really, like, well behaved. Um, as far as newborns go, he slept when he was supposed to sleep, and he was just so easy. And I was like, oh, well, if this is what my mat leave is going to be like, maybe I'll train as a coach
Mhm.
while I'm on mat leave. And that's what I did. And then time came for me to go back to my job, and I decided to keep coaching instead. So I left that job, and the rest is history. I
Mhm.
grew a coaching practice.
I love it.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you have since moved over to the island. What
Yes.
kind of spurred that? Was that family related or was that job related?
It was definitely family related. It
Okay.
was like, we were living in a two-bedroom apartment in Cole Harbor, which was lovely, but I was like, this is not where we're going to raise our family. Where are we going to raise our family? And my mom lived over in the island. My brother lived here at the time, and it just felt like the right move for us to be. As you know, like, with kids, it's so nice to have other family members around.
So nice. And it's
Um,
good for them to grow up around them.
it totally, it's nice. Yes, of course, there's extra helping hands, but just having other adults in their lives who they can go to and who they can trust and who they can just build relationships with, it's just a really lovely thing. So that was it. And then at the time, Ian's the writing was on the wall at Ian's job in Vancouver, and he was going to have to find something else anyway. They were kind of dissolving. Um, and so that kind of spurred it on too. Like, I think had that not happened, we might have stuck it out in Vancouver a little longer.
Mhm.
But we actually moved here and neither of us had jobs here. So my job stayed in Vancouver and I worked remotely. And Ian found a job in Calgary, but they let him work remotely. So it was very weird.
Oh,
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it was very weird. But it was really one of those things where it's like, we're moving to Victoria and we'll figure
Yeah,
out the rest. And then
whatever
yeah, the jobs kind of fell into place.
That's what
Yeah.
happened with Darren and I moved to Vernon. Same
Yeah.
thing. Well, your brother lived here,
Hmm.
our good friend Court, and we were like, well, Court lives here. We really want to move here.
Yeah.
Um, and neither of us have jobs. So Darren's worked remotely for his job in Edmonton, and I
All right. I
was
remember that.
this for months, and then
Yeah.
I finally got a job in Kelowna. But it
Yeah.
took time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing about like trusting it'll work out, right? Like choosing it before you know all the pieces. Like it just always works. It just does, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, it will work out in the end. And you kind of end up getting a little bit like, I have to do these things, right? So I was just like reaching out to all of my connections. Does anybody know anybody in Kelowna that might want to hire me? And then it worked out.
Yeah. And how many months did you say you're without a job?
I can't remember, but I think it was at least 4 where
Okay.
I know I had savings
Hmm.
from the sale of our home in Edmonton. So I was like, okay, I can cruise for like 3 to 4
I have a
months.
little bit of a buffer. Yeah.
And we were about to get married, so I had my stagette in Vegas, and I remember going to Vegas and feeling really strapped.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't wanna do Vegas that way, but I was like, "I don't have a job.
Right. Vegas on a budget.
29 and I have no job." So, yeah, Vegas on a budget. So I didn't love it, but, I mean, I had a great time, and my girlfriends that basically just ended up paying for everything, which I felt bad about, but
Don't
now
feel bad about that sort of thing.
it's fine now.
It was an expression of love. That's all money is.
Yeah,
The expression of
exactly.
love and energy.
So I'm just fascinated by your story, and then I want to talk a little bit about what you are talking about at Boss Up,
Mhm.
or not Boss Up, at
I
Informing.
keep calling it I keep calling it boss up too. That's how I have it saved everywhere. And then I'm like, what? That's not what this is called.
I know, I do too. But it's a shorter version, and what I love about this is that we still get, you know, amazing insight from you, and to be able to connect with you, and for people to learn from you. But it's a short time frame, right? Because it's
Yeah.
virtual. Nobody wants to like hang out on
Our
Zoom forever.
attention spans are lower, I find. Yes.
Yeah, and then there's a replay. So if you miss something, you can watch it again.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna film it. So
Yeah.
we'll and I'll send you the replay afterwards. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so tell us about this. So reframing
Yeah.
procrastination and basically taking some of the things that you might see as fear and looking
Well,
at them a different way, basically, right?
yeah. So I think I don't want to give away the whole thing because it is just like kind of a short and sweet thing. But
Yeah.
the real like high level of it is we tend to want to manage our procrastination, like more time management skills, more, if I get the right journal or if I just put away my phone, and those are fine, like as strategies not to procrastinate, right? Like sometimes I got to put away my phone if I got to get something done.
Yeah.
But the higher level is that most of us are scared. Like most of us are a little bit scared of failing at what we're working at.
Hmm.
And if you don't address that fear of failure, and really do something with it, that's really what's running your procrastination at a very deep level. Is there's some fear there, and
Hmm.
unless you're Buddha, you haven't transcended that fear. I don't care who you are. Like your ego's job is
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be scared. Like that's its whole purpose, is to scare you into inaction and not do anything that could make you vulnerable. And as
Hmm.
business owners, our jobs are kind of to take risks and put ourselves out there and try new things, which inherently our
Is
ego does
scary.
not like. It's like, do not do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many procrastination tools you throw at that. If you don't address that fear and channel it into something or find a way to work with it,
Mm.
then the no tool is going to make a difference for you. I love a good tool, don't get me wrong, but in conjunction with finding ways to manage and be friends with my fear. So that's really what this talk is about, is like, I don't, the spoiler alert, or like the PSA I have is like, I don't have a quick fix for you. I don't have like, here's one tool that's going to change your life in an instant. That's not what I have. What I have is actually a more sustainable change, and a place for you to look at to grow your relationship with your business, and include fear along in the ride. Because I find sometimes one of the things that like makes me roll my eyes back in my head more than anything else is when people are like, I'm not scared of failure. And I'm like, oh, really? Do you have a heartbeat? Because if you go a heartbeat, you're scared of failure.
Who does that?
I've met people who say that, and it's just their ego. It's just
Yeah.
another strategy of their ego to be like, I don't have failure, or I don't have fear of failure because I'm
Yeah.
brave.
No.
And it's like, I'm brave too, but I'm scared shitless. Like, yeah,
Every day,
yeah,
and it's so funny that so today I was procrastinating like crazy, and it really made me think of you
yeah.
because I'm like, okay, what am I procrastinating from? What am I scared of? Why I was shoveling, I was like doing whatever I could.
Yeah,
Never want to do those sorts of things, but today I wanted to do them.
sure. Yeah,
And I think I'm hoping that the first step is knowing that you're procrastinating
totally.
of fear
Totally. Yeah,
and I got over it. And then eventually I was able to kind of move on and get some stuff done.
yeah,
And then, like I said, these conversations with you and with Laura, those are very motivating for me. So
yeah.
I'm
Talking to other people who are like doing scary
oh,
things. Yeah.
yeah, like what
And be
motivates?
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I do have some, I have some tricks up my sleeve, some tools that I can offer you, but they're not in the realm of managing your time. You already know how to do that. Like, you know how to manage your time. It's a deeper ego based thing. And what do you do with that? Like, once we know it, it's like, what do I do with it now? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's
And
kind of what this talk is about, is like, what are some ways? What's that?
do you have some like resources or books or like what do you use for these? Like maybe things we should get ahead of time um
Um,
to look at. So I just got this book. I don't know if you
yeah.
can see it.
Oh yeah, I love that book. It's great.
Have you read this?
Hmm. Yeah,
I haven't read it yet. How is it?
it's great. Yeah, it's a great.
So Jay, who's speaking at the same time as you,
Mhm.
on February 18th, she mentioned this and a couple other books. I'm just waiting for them. We ordered them. But it's a really similar topic to what you're talking about, is like
Yeah,
how to scale up and really focusing on your vibrational mindset,
yeah,
right? Like these kinds of things, like let's acknowledge our fears and
yeah.
move on. She has had some real breakthroughs, like major breakthroughs in her businesses
Mhm.
because she was able to recognize like, okay, this anxiety means something and
Yeah,
how can I take it to the next level?
yeah,
Um, but that's super scary, right? So this that basically says on the cover, conquer your hidden fear and take your life to the next level.
yeah. It really is about acknowledging fear. And it really is like, I'm talking to you, and you're in the entrepreneurial space and you're speaking to other entrepreneurs. Like, and
Mhm.
so this message is really for people who, I meet a lot of people who are like, oh, it's normal to be scared. I'm like, yeah, it's normal to be scared. And they don't actually know that. So it really is like, hey, it's totally normal to be scared.
Mhm.
Honor, expect, recognize your fear is really, really the first step to saying, like, I'm a human being who gets scared. And
Yeah.
now what? Like, now what will I do? Let me think about any resources I would point people towards. I mean, that's a great book. Um, the other
Yeah.
one that this is going to sound, sorry, go ahead.
You can send me whatever. And I mean, I'd like to get the books ahead of time, but I'd love to tell people some
Yeah.
resources that they can look at as well, in
Yeah.
addition to this.
Yeah. This is going to sound like a weird one, but I actually recommend most women read this book. And it's called Codependent No More.
Okay. It's not
Um,
for the soul. I was like, please
No,
don't say
it's definitely not chicken soup for the soul.
it.
No, I
It's
mean, I loved those when I was like 13 years old, but because so I don't know, like, codependent is kind of a big word, and but the premise of codependency is like that it's really like kind of people pleasing in a way, in its simplest form, right? And people pleasing, wanting to look good, making sure nobody sees we're invulnerable, is part of codependency.
Mm.
And so, and my experience is like we're all a little bit codependent. Um, you know, it as a clinical diagnosis as well, and there are varying degrees of codependence, but it's a really great book for anybody who struggles with people pleasing and who is really concerned about looking a certain way, which we all are to varying degrees, but it can
Mhm.
just really help reframe the people pleasing stuff. So it's a bit of a wonky suggestion, but it
No,
relates.
it's great. I love that. I'm a super big people pleaser and I talk about it a
Mhm.
lot on with our audience. And our audience is very specific and they love like tips and tools and tricks. And I think that one of the things I talk about is how can we learn to say no more, right? So we have
Mhm.
tips on like how to say no in an email, how to say no nicely, how to set boundaries, and we talked
Yeah,
about that at gossip as well, because these are things that I suffer with, and I'm sure other people that I know in our audience do. And I know that they do.
yeah.
So that's good. I'm definitely going to get this book too.
Codependent no more. The other one I would recommend is Do Less, if you haven't already read Do Less.
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's so good. Definitely read Do Less. And it ties into you, right? Like it's really like if we let go of our attachment to performance, to looking good, to like a very patriarchal approach to business, which is like outperform and more is better. And it's actually like a feminine approach to business, like a very a feminist approach to business, like honoring your cycle, honoring your
Oh,
body. Yeah, all of
mhm.
that stuff. So Do Less is also a really great resource that if people want us, and it's all related, right? Like my talk is called Reframing Procrastination, but um, my husband is very loud. I don't know if you can hear him.
I
He's
can
like
hear
the
him. Hey, buddy.
he's like the loudest talker on the face of the earth.
Okay.
Um, uh, but yeah, it's all related, right? It's really just like how do
He's
we oh, speaking of family
thirsty.
members, hi.
Oh,
Um, how
yeah,
do
you
we how do we maximize our success but also take really good care of ourselves? That's really what I want people to have. And I my experience is that people really beat themselves up when they're procrastinating, and they can really get in their heads when they you know, they're like, oh, this must mean I don't want this that badly, or I'm lazy or something. And it's like
Mhm.
it's just human, you know, you're
It's
just being human.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, so I put on our stories today that I was in deep procrastination. And then Caitlin sent me a message and she said, take the day off. It's okay.
totally.
Like, you're fine. And it was so
Totally.
lovely of her to say that. Like, we had already gotten past it at that point,
Yeah.
and was actually being productive. But even sometimes just to have permission
Yeah.
from somebody, right? Like when you're an entrepreneur, you don't really get permission from anybody.
Nobody's going to tell you to take a day off.
It's okay. What's up, bud? Yep, you can have a rice cake. Oh,
Can you have a rice cake? No, no rice cakes.
no.
So cute.
But anyways, like so nice for her to even just say that,
Yep.
because how often do you get somebody being like, take the day off?
Yeah,
Fine, you got it.
totally. I think that's the other again, I don't want to give away everything in my talk, otherwise no one will come. But one of the things I say is like really surround yourself with those people, you know, surround yourself with those people who can just get you out of your head, you like,
Mhm.
you know, give you the permission that you need. Like, hey, I actually need somebody to give me permission today. And it's like, stamp, there you go, permission granted, especially as an entrepreneur, because no one
Yeah.
is going to give you the permission. It really is up to you to manage your energy.
And I've learned too that I love that you said that because you're right. Managing your energy is such a big thing. And I've learned that the more I project this, the more I get back. So if I'm
Mhm.
saying these sorts of things to other people and being like, hey, you deserve it, whatever it is, or like celebrate your success, like I often am giving recognition and I try to
Right.
do that. I find that it comes back to me too because um, we're all sort of here for each other and supporting each other. And that's what we're trying to really grow with Grace and Flow is to
Yeah.
create this network of women who support each other in a way where we don't necessarily work together, but we understand each other.
Exactly. Where you have like a pool to go to and drink some water from, like that they're like, hey, you don't got it today. I got something for you, you know, like a little bit of collective energy.
Have this conversation. So one thing you mentioned earlier about the people that you work with, I just wanted to talk
Yes.
about my why, and I think that it's very
Yeah.
similar. And one of them is that I really want there to be women leaders and executive who are successful and growing every day, but who are not afraid to sit at the table, to play in
Mhm.
the arena, and negotiate their worth. And they meditate, they take time for themselves, they understand
Yeah.
family, and they understand that the most valuable thing in the world isn't money.
Totally.
It your time.
It's feminist leadership. It's like,
It
yeah. And it's funny because I was watching, I don't know if you're watching Yellowstone right now. Have you watched that show with Kevin
of
Costner?
course.
Okay. So you'll know what I'm talking about when the mom says to the little girl, she's like, you're gonna enter into a male world, and my job is to like teach you how to survive in that world. And I'm like, no, it's not. Don't teach her that. Don't teach her how to be more like a man. Like, please don't teach her that. It's like teach her to like a different style of leadership. Like sit at the table and demand people take breaks. Sit at the table and demand that culture is more important than money. Like it truly is. We are totally lying to ourselves if we think money's the answer. It's not. It doesn't make anybody any happier.
I know. And, you know, Tanya Yardley, she's speaking at
Yeah.
these Inform and Inspire series as well. Hers is March 18th. But, you know, at Boss Up in Vancouver, she talked a lot about that and
Yeah.
around, you know,
She's wonderful.
men and women, right? Like how can we
Totally.
create this, um, get out of this sort of gender bias and working with our feminine flow instead of against it and leading with our feminine power. So at our virtual
Yeah.
boss this year, that was our main theme, was leading with your feminine power. And we talked a lot about how the old boys club is still alive and well, and that we want to create this, you know, these women, these female mentors that you can
Yeah.
draw upon, and that we can support one another, and that we're, you know, we're not selling out and we're not conforming to the patriarchal society, because we want there to be we want to teach our children that it's
Yeah.
okay, you know, if you have off days, and it's okay to
Yeah.
want to take time for your family, and it's okay if you're not working 12 hours a day.
For men and women, like not just for women,
And
right?
for women, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and honoring the masculine too, right? Like I think it gets a bit divisive sometimes when it's like feminine's better. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's just that the masculine energy might not work for women, but can we find a way for everyone to be at the table and bring the yin and the yang and both of it, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a place for both of it, but you don't have to conform to masculinity if feminine is
yeah,
uh
is what your thing is.
what you work with.
And
Yeah,
we all have masculine and feminine in us, right? Like
Mhm.
it's they're both there. But it's like, how do you actually want to harness both to your ultimate benefit and the world's ultimate benefit,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
the toxic masculinity of like driving yourself into the ground, you know?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And making that your picture of success.
Yeah. It's really
Anyway,
a no win. Yeah. Anywho.
it's always so good to chat with you. It's been too long.
I know. It's so nice. Thanks so much for setting this up. And I really do just love getting on and chatting with people. So thank you so much.
Ooh, and I feel like we need to do this more often. Like I haven't done this with you in a very long time. So, you know, doesn't matter that you're on the island and I'm in the interior. We clearly can connect now. So
We
maybe we
can.
can do it a bit more often.
Let's do it. I'd love that.
I know, me too. So Megan is speaking at Inform and Inspire February 18th. It's at 6 p.m. It's a Thursday night that's live, and we will be recording it. So if you miss it, you can still catch her talk. It's very focused on reframing procrastination. But as you have learned in this discussion, Megan works with women on lots of other topics. Do you work with any men as well?
I do have male clients that do actually. Yep. Yeah. It's just that women tend to gravitate towards me. I have some male clients that I love very much and do awesome work with.
And please do send me your workshop information for your
I
monthly
will. Yeah. 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 I will. Yeah.
on
Beyond
that.
bubble baths. Yeah.
Beyond bubble baths. Thanks, Megan. So good to
Thanks,
see
Jess.
you.
Talk to you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.